it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. So glad to have you here on hour 2 of the Russ Belville Show. It's Toker Talk Radio, where you can toke, you can talk, you can talk about toke, you can toke while you talk. But you don't have to talk about toke. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. Just give me a call, 971-533-7111. But only for the next few days. So I got onto my Skype today to do the call out for the Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment. And my Skype said, you've expired. You need to sign back up. You need to give us money. I'm like, oh, crap. So I got it all plugged in and got the money and everything. Got it all set up and made the call, obviously. But in doing so, I learned that my phone number, 971-533-7111, expired as well. And it doesn't look like I can get back my original phone number. I can't get back my 971-533-7111. And that's kind of bumming me out because I've had it for, 5-6 years now for the show. I'm a little upset. So now I'm going through Skype and trying to find a new number. And once I do that, I'll have to try my damnedest not to say the old number. Because, when you do these radio shows, you get used to saying certain things and you just say them, out of habit. So I'm trying to get a phone number that ends with RADRUSS, RADRUSS, which is 723-7877. And if we can get that, that'll be really cool. I'm looking through all of the area codes in the United States, trying to find that. And so far, no luck. Most of the numbers you get through Skype have zeros in them. And, of course, zeros are no good for coming up with words. So we'll keep looking. I've made it all the way through the California area codes. We'll keep looking, see what we can do as far as that goes. Coming up here in hour 2, got all sorts of interesting things to talk about here. We're continue on that bootleggers and Baptists and bureaucrats report that's out from the Brookings Institute. Very, very interesting. We got some updates on Eugene Monroe, the NFL player who was dropped by the Baltimore Ravens, ostensibly for his support of medical marijuana. And looks like he's going to get picked up by the New York Giants, and the coach from the Giants doesn't seem to have a problem with that. So we're looking about that. There's another paper out from Brookings. One of the same authors from the first paper, Jonathan Rauch, but this time joined by John Hudak. John's been a guest on our show a number of times, and the paper's entitled Worry About Bad Marijuana, Not Big Marijuana. So we'll talk a little bit about that report as well. Sounds very interesting. There's a new museum in Oakland that people can take a look at called Altered State, Marijuana in California. California Normal's Dale Geringer, a part of that. We'll tell you all about what's happening there. And we'll get more updates on what's happening with the bus that happened in California on CBD Guild and the Absolute Extracts. Find out what's happening there. Santa Rosa Police busting them. And again, we'll take your calls on our number while it still exists, 971-533-7111. It's Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, live from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. I'm Radical Russ. We're going to take a break, pay some bills. Give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back with more.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earlywine is here to tackle the burning issues.
Author Catherine Hiller and her great new book, Just Say Yes, Marijuana Memoir. So I love the way you use time in the memoir.
I started at the present time, and I described a visit to my dealer, and then I would go backward in time so that every chapter starts a little bit earlier. I do not feel that marijuana has in any way harmed my life. It certainly hasn't led me to the streets. It's led me to a more joyful life experience.
Burning Issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Christian convictions are under attack as never before.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The Law Office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 9 after the hour here from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. And I want to continue this discussion about big marijuana. So again, that's the talking point that we get from Kevin Sabet and the Project Sam people. Because all the rest of their talking points have been blown out of the water. What about the children doesn't work anymore, because last 3 federal data sets have shown that the kids aren't smoking anymore. They're smoking somewhat less. Even though their perception of risk has gone down and their approval of marijuana has gone up, their use hasn't gone up. Now, I've always argued that there's really not anywhere for kids' use to go since they've already got the access. They already know someone who deals weed. 91% of the time, or actually 44% of kids in school know their school dealer. 44% of them know the school dealer. And 91% of the time, that school dealer is selling weed. Only 6% of the time is that school dealer selling cigarettes. Only 1% of the time is that school dealer selling alcohol. And when we ask the kids, the high school seniors, for the past 45 years, or 40 years, for the past 40 years, we've asked them, if you wanted to score a bag, how easy would it be? And between 80 and 91% of them had said easy or fairly easy. So I've always argued there's no way legalization could make it easier for kids. They got it as easy as they could ask for. But this, what about the children talking point is gone. This stoned mayhem on the freeway talking point is starting to evaporate. It's not gone entirely. But I think it was a huge victory for our movement when the first 2 states that legalized passed with some sort of per se or presumptive nanogram limit on driving. Colorado's is presumptive. It says if you're caught with 5 nanograms, you're too stoned, but you can argue against it. And the per se in Washington says if you're caught with 5 nanograms, you're guilty. You're too stoned. And you can't argue against it. You're just too stoned, right? That 5 nanograms, of course, has no bearing in science whatsoever. Has nothing to do with whether or not you're too impaired. But those 2 states picked a number. And then in the next states that legalized in 2014, Alaska and Oregon, purposely did not pick a number and resisted the attempts from law enforcement and legislators that argued strenuously for some sort of number. Now, Oregon's law did put in a thing of, well, we'll let the state study it and come up with a recommendation, which was a trick on our part because we know if there's any sort of fair and scientific evaluation of it, our side wins. Because THC is fat soluble, it doesn't correlate very well to impairment, yada, 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 right? So the fact that the next 2 states that legalized didn't have a per se, and the next 5 that are trying to legalize, California, Arizona, Nevada, Maine, and Massachusetts, don't have any sort of per se limit added to theirs. Now, to be fair, Nevada already has a per se DUID for marijuana. It's, I think, 2 nanograms in Nevada. And I think Arizona is a no-tolerance state already, but medical marijuana patients are exempt if it's just metabolites. So those 2 states don't include any bad driving language because they've already got bad driving language. But at least they didn't add it in Maine, Massachusetts, or California. So the SMOF is gone, stone mayhem on the freeways. WOTC is gone. What about the children? The Sabbat conjecture is gone. That's the one where Kevin Sabet used to say that, well, for every $1 that you take in alcohol and tobacco taxes, it costs $10 in social costs. Well, that one went away as soon as we brought in $100 million in marijuana taxes, and he couldn't find $1 billion worth of social costs. So all of the talking points, and the other talking point, the other Project Sam talking point is scare quotes medical marijuana, right? It's not really medical. Oh, sure. The constituents of the plant itself, when isolated and patented and put into a bar-coded prescription bottle with a 10,000% markup, those could be medical. But those same constituents that come in the plant you can grow for yourself at low cost, well, those can't be medical at all. You know, like how vitamin C, when it comes in a chewable gummy, why, that's nutritious. But if you get vitamin C by eating an orange, it has no effect whatsoever. That's the logic. That's the logic of saying that pot is not medical, but Sativex is. It's the same logic train, and no one's buying that one either. No one's buying that one when they see a person who's got tremors and stuttering and seizures smokes a doobie and then immediately starts talking calmly and unbrokenly. They've seen too many of these Sanjay Gupta weed specials. They've seen too many of the number of specials on Nat Geo and CNN and CNBC and all these other stations where they've learned that, hey, I can see someone using that product, even smoking it. Ooh, the big bad joint smoking. Ooh, dirty. Even that, though, they can see people do it and see immediate relief, immediate results. So the scare quotes medical marijuana doesn't work anymore either. So you lost SMOF, you lost WOTC, you lost the Sabbat conjecture. I keep mispronouncing that. And you've lost the scare quotes medical marijuana. The only point the prohibitionists have left is the fear of big marijuana. Oh, big marijuana. It's going to be big corporations that, create jobs and inject money into local economies and pay taxes and obey regulations and solve their disputes in court. Oh no, big marijuana. But we can't dismiss it. Can't dismiss this scare. We need to put it to rest. And the way we put it to rest is by having our corporations, our companies, be shining examples of how to do this stuff right, of how to be good corporations. And a couple of things that puncture this whole idea of big marijuana. Number one is that marijuana is still federally illegal. It's still Schedule 1. As long as it's Schedule 1, there can't be interstate commerce in this thing. That's why all these companies that have grown large, Harborside Health Center, River Rock, Colorado, Dixie Elixirs. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of these companies that have gotten pretty big, but only big in their state. When Dixie wants to market its stuff in Washington State, it has to set up a whole separate company in Washington State and license its stuff. It can't just be the same company in two states, or that's interstate commerce, and then they got a federal problem. So the Schedule 1 federal prohibition on marijuana, in a sense, is kind of having a protective effect, an insulating effect for our burgeoning marijuana businesses that can only be regulated at the state level. So this gives us a whole bunch of state-level players in the business. Now, there's talk about, descheduling marijuana. We could take marijuana off the schedules. But that comes at a cost. If we take marijuana off the Controlled Substance Act, if it's no longer a controlled substance, then where does it go? A lot of people have talked about maybe it goes to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and they just add a C for cannabis, or an M for marijuana, right? Alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, firearms, and explosives, whatever it might be. But that runs some risks because alcohol and tobacco, legal substances that are dominated by major corporations. Altria, which used to be Philip Morris, right? On the cigarette side, you've got on the alcohol side, of course, Budweiser, Coors, Miller, right? Now, even in the worst case scenario, from our perspective as consumers, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I live in Portland, Oregon, and Budweiser, Coors, and Miller are still sold in every store and every bar. But there's also a place right across the street where they've got 45 different taps of craft brews and craft ciders. It's right across the street from where I'm at. Growler Guys, it's called. And there's numbers of places like that in Portland where you can get are local craft brews from the Pacific Northwest. So even in the world of Budweiser, Miller, and Coors, there's still a world for the craft brewer. And I don't think marijuana is going to be any different. Even if Altria got involved and started making Marlboro joints, those could sell. That'd be fine. Mass-produced, mid-grade joints, great. But that's not going to stop people from wanting to buy the finer, hand-trimmed, organic, kick-ass bud from the Pacific Northwest. And that's worst-case scenario. I think in a best-case scenario, we deschedule marijuana, turn it over to a federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosives, and Cannabis. And then at the federal level, they set up rules that say, in essence, that marijuana legalization and regulation still is left up to the states. Kind of, buttress what's happening right now. Just let that continue. Let the regulations happen at the state level. Now, I don't know how much the feds could do as far as preventing any of these companies from being interstate, though. So I think once the product's legal and once commerce in it is legal, any sort of, preventing, say, Dixie Elixirs from, selling their products in California and Washington and other legal states, I think would run into some restraint of trade sort of regulations. I'm not sure about that. That's beyond my pay grade. But these are things we need to consider in this big marijuana argument because it's the only thing they got left.
I can't do reefer comedy. I'm drunk. Two different animals.
All right, folks, it's 4:20 here in beautiful legal Portland, Oregon, and all across the Pacific time zone. Thanks for joining us for the show. We're going to take a break, pay some bills. We'll be back in just 2 minutes after this important safety briefing.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs. You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
I also believe we need a fence. The problem is if El Chapo builds a tunnel under the fence, we have to be able to deal with that too.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Time for us to talk about something off the warpath. We do this every now and then, although I do think this has some tangential reference to marijuana because of the way marijuana ends up getting taxed. And so this refers back to the city of Philadelphia. We covered this in hour one in the news, how the city of Philadelphia has passed a soda tax. It's a tax of 1.5 cents per ounce. So that ends up being about 50 cents a liter. That's right. So 1.5 cents per ounce, 50 cents per liter of drink. So a 2-liter bottle of soda, your 2-liter bottle is going to cost $1 more. And they bring this up because we got to save the people from getting too fat. According to the standards here, or according to the statistics, in Philadelphia, more than 68% of adults and 41% of children are overweight or obese. And this passed with a 13-4 vote in the city council. Now, when I had been reading about this, the last I'd heard about this tax is it was going to apply not just to sugared drinks, but also artificially sweetened soft drinks. And in fact, I'm just confirming here on CNN Money that yes, it does apply to diet soda. What is the point? Now, if you're trying to give me the excuse that you're going to tax soda because the people are too fat, why are you adding the tax to diet soda? This is going to add, according to CNN Money, 18 cents to the cost of a can of soda. So they're going to, bump it up to $0.25 when you get it out of the vending machine because they're not going to take pennies. $1 $1.08 for a 6-pack and $1.02 for a 2-liter bottle. Add an extra buck to diet sodas as well. And this is already on top of 8% sales tax that they've got in Pennsylvania. Now, at least it's only half of what they had proposed. The mayor had proposed a 3 cents tax. He would have added $2 to the cost of a 2-liter bottle of soda. Now, the tax goes into effect on January 1st. It's estimated to raise $91 million a year. And here's what's, there's so many problems with this to me. The number one problem is taxing the Diet Cokes. You're taxing the diet stuff. But the number two thing that bothers me is that this tax will not apply. Now, it'll apply to sugared sodas, diet sodas, tea, sports drinks, energy drinks. But it's not going to apply to any drink that's 50% or more fruit juice, any drink that's vegetable juice, or any drink that's milk. And I presume it's not applied to beer, right? And you want to fight obesity, put a tax on beer, right? I shouldn't say that because they've already got extra taxes on beer. Let's stick to the subject here. So you're going to tax an extra $1 per 2 liters for someone that's going to buy a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke that has 0 calories. But if they bought an 8-ounce bottle of Mott's 100% original apple juice, 100% juice, no extra tax on that, but it comes with 120 calories and 28 grams of sugar. 28 grams of sugar in the apple juice, no tax. 0 grams of sugar in the Diet Coke, 1.5 cent per ounce tax. How about chocolate milk? What are we looking at for the calories? Chocolate milk. 209 calories from 1 cup of chocolate milk. 1 cup. Let's see, 1 ounce, 26 times 8. Bring up our calculator here. We're going to keep it all in 8 ounces. I don't know how many 8 ounces is how many cups because I do metric. So, yeah, 208. A cup is 8 ounces. All right, so 208 calories for a cup of chocolate milk. That one comes with, where's the sugars on this one? Doesn't show the sugars. Well, drat. Anyway, 209 calories, no tax on the chocolate milk, 0 calories from the Diet Coke, punitive tax. And the other thing that bothers me about this is saying that you want to tax sugary sodas to fight obesity is kind of a very narrow target to aim at, ain't it? If you're wanting to fight obesity, you would tax Big Macs and Hot Pockets and chocolate cake and all sorts of things that make people fat. Here's something I wish that they would think about. A lot of the reason people are buying 2-liter bottles of soda and drinking it up, because oftentimes you can find a 2-liter bottle of soda for, 70 cents, depending on these off-brands and such. The goal shouldn't be to raise the price of the bad shit to force people to not buy it. The goal should be to lower the price of the good shit to incentivize people to buy it. I believe more in carrots than I believe in sticks. Right? Let's stop trying to sin tax the things that are bad and instead perhaps subsidize the things that are good. Make the vegetable juices get a tax break instead of forcing the diet sodas to be taxed. a lot of people, when we get into these arguments, especially when I get into the food stamp arguments, when I get into the SNAP benefits, you get those people that get upset that, America's the only country that's got fat poor people. It's that old argument of, our poor people have iPads and TVs and blah, 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 right? And one of the reasons why our poor people are fat is because our poor people tend to live in food deserts, and they tend to live near, bodegas and convenience stores where they can get processed food, and processed food is cheap. Pasta is cheap. Crackers are cheap. Bread is cheap. And you can buy all this processed food and be able to live on it on a budget, but it makes you fat. Whereas if they had access to affordable, good food, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, fresh seafood, if that stuff were affordable, more people would eat it. People aren't making these choices to eat the shitty fast food and the shitty processed food because they don't like fish or salad or green beans or whatever it might be. They're doing it because it's there, it's available, and it's cheap. So I just get frustrated by tax policies that are designed to punish people into doing the right thing. I'm upset with Obamacare for the same damn reason. I'm not upset about the results of Obamacare. I like that more people are insured. I like that kids can stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26 so they can, start a life. I like that they can't kick people off of insurance for lifetime benefits running out, and they can't deny insurance because people have pre-existing conditions and so forth. But at what cost did we get those concessions from the private healthcare insurers? The cost was, for the first time ever in our country's history, the federal government required its citizens to purchase a private product for the profit of a company. For the first time ever, the federal government forced its citizens to be customers of a private entity. That's not the kind of public-private cooperation I'm looking for. I don't need the government to force me to have to buy private insurance. Now, of course, this was done because that was the only way to get the young people to sign up for insurance, and you got to have the young, healthy people to balance out the old, sick people who use up all the benefits, yada, yada, yada. But all that is just an argument for public health care. That's just an argument for the fact that we ought to all share the risk in our health care coverage. Just like we all share the risk in our fire coverage and our police coverage and our military coverage. We should all share the risk in our health care coverage. I mean, our Congress goes out of its way to block Medicare from negotiating as a group for lower prescription drug prices. So the cost of a pill that's, $15 in India ends up being $15,000 in the United States. It's time that we start to recognize that some things are better done as a group, are better done as a country, as a nation, and healthcare is one of them. Don't force me to have to buy healthcare just so that we can all share the risk. Let's just all share the risk. Don't punish me for not wanting to share the risk. Let's just make that the default. We all share the risk with Social Security. We all, when we get our Social Security number and we start working, money gets taken out of our check to plan for our future, even if we personally aren't a part of that future. You might start working at age 20 and die at age 50, and you might have paid into Social Security for 30 years and you never see a dime of it. But we all recognize that it was better for us to all pool our interests together to protect all of us from the risk of being destitute and elderly in the streets. We recognize that was something that as a society was better for us all to tackle together than to leave up to the vagaries of the private market. Now, the private market's great. I love capitalism. I love free markets. But the thing about a free market is there's always a winner and a loser. At some level, somebody wins and somebody loses. Not everybody's business is successful. Not every person wins in capitalism. So when you look at whether something should be capitalized, something should be free market, you should look at what happens to the losers. Not how good it makes things turn out for the winners. How does it leave the losers? Well, in the case of, let's say, car sales, the winners get to drive and the losers have to walk. It's not the worst outcome for the losers. But in the case of healthcare, the winners get to live and the losers get to die. That's not acceptable. All right, we're going to take a break. Got a few more bills to pay here. Make sure you check out our sponsors here on Cannabis Radio and let them know that you heard their ad on Cannabis Radio, and we'll get more ads and we'll make more shows. When we come back, we'll talk about Oakland's Marijuana Museum and an update on Eugene Monroe from the NFL.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Next to THC and CBD, you can now add CBR to your cannabis vernacular. CBR as in CannabisRadio.com.
The National Cannabis Industry Association presents the 3rd Annual Cannabis Business Summit and Expo. The most influential business event in the marijuana industry returns for 3 days in Oakland, California. Join your fellow industry leaders and policy influencers June 20th through 22nd for an in-depth educational experience and network with more than 3,000 cannabis professionals. The 2016 Cannabis Business Summit and Expo will feature keynote presentations from California Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom and Numi Organic Tea CEO Ahmed Rahim, giving you insight into cutting-edge policy discussions and the most innovative business practices. All this, plus the most comprehensive expo floor in the industry. The Cannabis Business Summit and Expo, June 20th through 22nd in Oakland. Don't miss out. Register right now at CannabisBusinessSummit.com and save 15% off registration using promo code RADIO15. That's CannabisBusinessSummit.com, promo code RADIO15.
Chronicling the latest cannabis industry news and headlines.
Well, with 4 states with tax and regulate and the District of Columbia.
The state of cannabis.
Oh my God, it's refreshing. We have people that generally wouldn't speak on behalf of cannabis for fear of retribution, fear of losing your practices, fear of many of those things, and find ourselves in a place that we finally can.
Bringing you fact-based news and views and keeping listeners on the pulse of what's happening in the industry today. The state of cannabis. On demand anytime, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and Boise State University's 2400 baud modem bulletin board system from 1985.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPAs offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why did I come in here? This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 39 after the hour. Quick update from the National Football League on the release of Baltimore Ravens offensive tackle Eugene Monroe. Now, Monroe has made a point that his outspoken advocacy for medical cannabis, specifically that the NFL remove all testing for marijuana and allow its players to use medical cannabis in the states where it's legal, has been, according to Monroe, part of the reason why the Ravens got rid of him. He has said that the Ravens have been distancing them from his statements. And in a tweet today, Monroe says, quote, "I will not be returning to the Ravens this season. It's never easy moving on. I love Baltimore and its fans, but this is all part of the game. Despite the current uncertainties, one thing is for sure. Whatever happens in terms of my professional football career, I will never stop pushing the league to accept medical cannabis as a viable option for pain management. I will do everything I can to ensure the generations of NFL players after me won't have to resort to harmful and addictive opioids as their only option for pain management. I've been working hard this offseason to recover from my injuries. I am cleared to play and excited to get back on the field and compete." So he also told the Times, "I can't say for sure whether or not my stance on medical cannabis was the reason the Ravens released me. However, as I've said in the past, they have distanced themselves from me and made it clear they do not support my advocacy." Now, the coach of the Ravens, John Harbaugh, on being questioned about Monroe, said, quote, "Football circumstances, 100% football circumstances. That's it. That's all it ever was. It's no reflection on Eugene Monroe in any way. It just has to do with the circumstances with the Ravens and that position." And he makes a point of saying that the Ravens organization has allowed its players to have all sorts of opinions, pointing to 2012 when Matt Burke and Brendan Ayanbadejo were clashing on the issue of gay marriage, Burke being against it and Ayanbadejo being for it. So he says, we've always been very forward thinking, and we always allow people to be who they are, believe what they believe, and stand up for what they believe in, end quote from John Harbaugh. Now, in further research on this story, one of the editors at, was it the paper there one of the staff writers for ESPN makes the case that it was not Eugene Monroe's stance on medical cannabis that got him cut. It was just the fact that he was a lousy deal for the Ravens. And so in this story, Jamison Hensley writes that Eugene Monroe was cut just 27 months after the Ravens gave him $17.5 million. And in return, all they got in 2 seasons was 17 starts. So for those of you who don't know football, in a football season, you get 16 games a year plus 4 preseason games, but 16 games a year. So it should be 32 games. So he missed almost half the games that he was paid for. So that works out to about $1 million per game he played. And so from a cost standpoint, that didn't make a lot of sense. And the reason why he missed so many games is he was oft injured. They pointed out that he had missed. He started and finished just 3 of his last 16 games. He'd had a shoulder injury. He'd had ankle injury, a few other different injuries, and had missed a number of games. And one of the big ones that he missed was a game in the middle of last season, playing against the then St. Louis Rams. And if you don't know football, he's an offensive tackle. So he's one of the guys that's blocking on the outside against the big pass rushers that are trying to sack the quarterback. So it's a very important position being an offensive tackle because you're the guy who protects the multi-million-dollar quarterback. So in this game, he got injured. His shoulder was injured. And when he left the game, the backup that they put in on the very next play gets pushed back into the quarterback and injures the quarterback's knee. Joe Flacco injures his knee and takes him out for the season. So from the Ravens' point of view, they just had this offensive tackle they couldn't trust that would be either healthy or competent at the position and too expensive for them. And so in April, during the NFL draft, the Ravens used their number 6 pick overall. They were the 6th team to draft, picked a offensive tackle from Notre Dame named Ronnie Stanley. And so if Stanley is going to be the starter, then that would leave Eugene Monroe as the backup, and it would cost $6.5 million in base salary to keep Eugene Monroe. And so that's why they got rid of him. So according to the writer, he says, the deal with Monroe will rank as the biggest disappointment in the team's 20-year existence. So that's the other side. They're saying it's just a football decision, has nothing to do. Now, I'm not going to say it has nothing to do, right? Like, it's one of those deals where when they're making the football decision and they're making the money decisions, it doesn't help his case that he's standing so strongly for medical cannabis. They may have enough reason to fire him, essentially, fire him. They might have the reason to for football reasons, but I don't think his medical cannabis advocacy was helping him any. All right, so let me go to this other story coming out of the Los Angeles Times, and it's talking about a new museum exhibit called Altered State, Marijuana in California. And it's a museum, the Oakland Museum of California. And it's one of the first marijuana museum exhibits that we've ever reported on. Now, at the museum, they had Dale Geringer. Dale Geringer is the executive director of California NORML, and he's a co-author of Prop 215. And the story talks all about how the exhibit shows different aspects of marijuana, like spiritual ganja. Learn about industrial hemp. They learn some of the history of marijuana and its prohibition. And the museum is open for all ages. He says the people primarily attending the museum are older white women, average age 75. That's very interesting. And very interesting discussion here. You can take a look at it at the Los Angeles Times. One thing that was interesting here from the responses is the confessional that they have. And this confessional, they have people write down their confessions on index cards. And one of the confessions says, "Weed has gotten too strong. It was way more fun when one puff didn't render me stupid." And another one says, "Marijuana makes me desire my husband. Without it, I would pursue my love of women." I don't think you should not pursue talk to your husband about that. He might want you to try that as well. Sounds like a fun weekend. So you can read, like I said, read about this in the Los Angeles Times, Oakland Museum's marijuana exhibit. Go ahead, touch that bud. And it's nice to think that we're going to have museums like this as we move forward in the future. Now, in my chat room, by the way, we got a live chat room here on Toker Talk Radio, and you can get into it through our Spreaker app on CannabisRadio.com. If you look at the little player, there's something that looks like a kind of cartoon balloon. You click on that, and that'll get it into our chat room. And the chat room, one of our chatters is saying we should start a losers and quitters fantasy football league. Now, I actually did this for a long time. I used to have the pigskin potheads that I would run as an NFL fantasy team. And to get on the pigskin potheads, you had to have had some history with weed. Suspended for it, busted for it, known for smoking it, whatever. And I used to run this fantasy football league every year just to see how well would pot-smoking players do against non-pot smoking players. And it was kind of fun and didn't do too well because a lot of these players would end up getting suspensions. But I stopped doing it because I've come to realize that it's really not fair or indicative of anything, because lots of players are smoking weed out there. Tons of them are smoking weed. We just don't catch very many of them. So it started to make no sense to me, because it was like, all we're really doing is showing the people who got caught for weed versus the people who didn't get caught for weed. So I've stopped doing doing that sort of fantasy football stuff. But and also, it used to be when a football player got busted for weed, it was a big deal. You know, Ricky Williams was known for smoking weed back in the mid-2000s, and everybody went, oh, my God. Now, you know, every other week you get some player busted for weed or in the news for weed. So I don't think it has the impact that it used to have when I originally did that. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll wrap things up here on this fine Thursday afternoon. And I'm still crossing my fingers. I might be in Oakland next week. Don't know. We'll see. I'd really like to make it out to the National Cannabis Industry Association. You can help if you want to. You can always send me money. Our donations are through PayPal at paypal.me/RadicalRuss. PayPal.me/RadicalRuss if you'd like to help the travel budget to make it down to Oakland next week.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Keep your cannabis cravings under control. Feed your mind with CannabisRadio.com.
Play as Ted Growing, expelled botany sophomore and the biggest grower in town, only on Weed Firm Replanted. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
It's a lot of work being the biggest grower in town. Maintaining a room full of plants while dealing with a slew of eccentric customers? From a hardcore partier to the curious neighbor next door.
Is anybody home?
Help me expand my bud business by unlocking new strains, customizing my grow room, and completing challenges that you can't get enough of. Grow your empire so big you can see it from space. Low on funds? Don't worry. Weed Firm Replanted is free to download.
Download Weed Firm Replanted for free on the App Store and Google Play today. Get growing, Mr. Growing.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs.
The Russ Belville Show. We're as much like Cheech and Chong as ordinary Americans are like the Three Stooges. Hey, Mo!
Are you playing an acoustic guitar but want to be louder without an amp? Try a resonator guitar. The fingerboard extension has National Resophonic and other resonators, square necks and round necks. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com. Go wild hog in the woods.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 54 after the hour, just closing up shop here at the Russ Belville Show. And quick note, tomorrow on the Russ Belville Show, it will be show number 800. That's right, my 800th independent show as the Russ Belville Show. I had done 908 shows with Normal, so we're 108 shows away from breaking my own record. So show number 800, nothing special for show number 800, it's just show number 800. Kind of amazing. 4 years, just about, our anniversary was June 4th. That was when this independent show started in 2012. So in 4 years, just about 200 shows a year. Not shabby, if you ask me. So thank all of you for being a part of that and for helping us out. Finally, I want to close with a shout out to my friends in New Jersey and thinking about what may happen here as we move forward. You know, Donald Trump has been holding Chris Christie kind of close to him as far as being perhaps a member of his transition team, or God forbid, Attorney General, or even worse, vice presidential candidate. But Chris Christie has been in the orbit of Donald Trump for a while now, and it opens up some thoughts. First of all, having Chris Christie at some national level helping to set who's going to run DOJ and drug policy would obviously be a disaster for us, because he's one of the most batshit crazy, rabid, reefer madness prohibitionists out there. But there might be a silver lining in such a thing. And the silver lining would be that for the people of the state of New Jersey, you might get rid of that governor. And with Chris Christie out of the way, these proposals to add post-traumatic stress to your medical program, to add menstrual pain to your medical program, to possibly legalize marijuana in the state or in Atlantic City, save that crumbling town, those proposals might have a chance of passing if Chris Christie were out of the way. Now, it'd be a terrible price the rest of the country would have to pay, and with Christie in charge of the national level, whatever they do at the state level in New Jersey might end up being moot anyway. Christie might shut them all down. So, I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about. Personally, I really don't think the Trump ticket has a chance. I really don't think Donald Trump can win the presidency. I don't think, even with Governor Johnson in the race, I don't think so. First of all, heads up, just Trump versus Clinton, which it likely appears is going to be, but anyway, let's save that for another day. Trump versus Clinton, I don't see Trump getting past Clinton. I just don't see it. There's too many women. There's too many Hispanic voters. There's too many progressives, too many moderates even. Even moderate Republicans are talking about voting for Clinton because, well, she's a moderate Republican. So I don't see Trump getting elected president. Even in a situation if Gary Johnson starts taking off, I don't see it, because you got to win 270 electoral votes, and I think Hillary can do that. But even if a three-way race ended up deadlocking the Electoral College, in that circumstance, the people that finish the three highest finishers, I think, get determined by the House of Representatives. House is run by the Republicans. Does that mean Trump gets in? I don't think so. I think in that sort of situation, it's kind of all up in the air, and the Republicans could nominate Paul Ryan or somebody. So, I don't know. This is the most interesting election season I've ever been a part of, and I'll keep talking about it an hour or two. That's all the time we got, so thanks for joining us. I'm Radical Russ from beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it.